Hey guys, tonight we are stepping back into the sun-drenched, dusty streets of ancient Rome, not to witness a grand gladiator fight or a tense Senate debate, but to handle something much more relatable and grounded, the weekly laundry. Imagine the scent of warm stone, the distant, musical chime of a public fountain, and the incredible weight of a heavy wool toga draped over your arm. You probably believe that the Romans, with their grand marble temples, sophisticated laws, and beautiful white robes, used something like lavender, scented soap, or mountain spring water to keep those garments sparkling. You might imagine them scrubbing away with gentle herbs and clear liquids. In reality, their secret ingredient for a bright white finish and a deep clean was something you currently pay the city to flush away every single day. Their most prized cleaning agent was, quite literally, recycled human waste. Before you get too comfortable and possibly fall asleep halfway through, tap like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this odd mix of boredom and history. It keeps the channel alive, and the stories just sleepy enough to help you drift off again next time. If you are listening tonight from a rainy porch in London, a humid bedroom in Tokyo, a quiet apartment in New York, or anywhere in between, feel free to share your location and local time in the comments. It is always lovely to see where in the world our little community is gathering tonight to share a quiet moment of history. Now, dim the lights, let the world outside grow quiet, and turn on a fan if you like that soft, steady hum in the background. Let your shoulders loosen and your breathing slow. This is your time to drift. No rush, no deadlines, no noise. Just you, a little warmth in the air, and the faint whisper of history waiting to unfold. So, settle in, and let's ease gently into tonight's journey together. The morning light filters through the narrow window of your apartment, a small, humble room tucked away in one of the city's many towering insulae. These apartment blocks are the heartbeat of Rome, crowded and tall, leaning over the streets like old friends sharing a secret. You feel the rough, cool texture of the wooden bed frame under your hand as you sit up, slowly rubbing the sleep from your eyes. Outside, the city is just beginning to stir. You hear the distant, muffled sound of a heavy wooden cart rolling over uneven basalt stones and the soft, rhythmic calling of a bird perched on a terracotta roof tile nearby. The air is surprisingly cool at this hour and smells faintly of wood smoke from early cooking fires and the damp, stony scent of the morning earth. You look over at your toga, which lies in a heavy heap on a small stool. It is a massive piece of cream, colored wool, nearly 6 yards long, and after a week of walking through the dusty forums, sitting on stone benches, and navigating the crowded markets, it has seen much better days. You realize that washing this massive garment yourself is an impossible task. There are no plastic jugs of detergent in your room, no electric washing machines, and certainly no gentle cycle. In Rome, laundry is a professional industry, a serious business that happens in specialized shops called Fullonica. You gather the fabric, feeling its surprising weight and the coarse, natural texture of the fibers. Wool is a thirsty material, catching every bit of dust and sweat. You tuck the bundle under your arm and step out onto the landing. The stairs are narrow and steep, made of stone that has been worn down and smoothed by the feet of hundreds of neighbors over many decades. As you descend, the air grows slightly warmer, and the sounds of the Subura district begin to swell like a gentle tide. The streets are a labyrinth of activity. You move through the morning mist, which still clings to the deep shadows of the tall buildings. The sun is a pale gold disk rising over the hills, casting long, soft shadows across the cobblestones. You navigate the winding alleys, passing a small street shrine where a few wilting flowers remain from a previous offering. Your leather sandals make a rhythmic, soft sound against the stone, a steady and calming beat that matches your slow breathing. You pass a small bakery where the scent of warm, yeasty bread fills the air, almost distracting you from your mission. But the weight of the toga reminds you that today is a day for chores. In this era, a clean toga is far more than just a piece of clothing. It is a vital symbol of your status and your character. If you walk into a social gathering or a business meeting with a gray, stained robe, people will look at you as if you have completely forgotten how to be a Roman. It is the ancient equivalent of showing up to a modern job interview in your pajamas or with messy hair. You eventually find yourself standing before a wide, open doorway that spills light and the sound of splashing water onto the street. This is the Fullonica, your local laundry. Unlike a modern dry cleaner, which is often a quiet place with a few machines, this place is a hub of intense physical activity. The shop is organized around several large, deep stone basins and smaller tubs set into the floor. You notice the workers, known as fullones, already busy at their stations. They are strong men with rolled-up tunics and bare legs, prepared for a day of hard labor. The atmosphere is thick with the scent of damp wool and something sharper, a chemical smell that stings the nose just a little bit. This is the ammonia, the secret weapon of the Roman laundryman. Most togas were made of wool, which is naturally greasy because of the lanolin in the sheep's hair. This grease acts like a magnet for dirt. To get the wool truly white again, you need something that can break down that grease. Since the Romans didn't have modern chemical labs, they turned to the most abundant source of ammonia available, human urine. Historians still argue whether the smell in these shops was as overwhelming as we imagine today, or if the Romans had simply grown so used to it that it faded into the background like the scent of city traffic does for us. You approach the counter, where the manager of the shop greets you. He is a man who has clearly spent his life around fabric. He has the expert eye of someone who can identify a stain from across the room. He looks at your toga, noting the faint red wine spot on the hem from a dinner party, and the dark gray dust that has worked its way into the edges. There is a certain comfort in handing over your heavy burdens to someone who knows exactly how to handle them. He gives you a small wooden token, your receipt, and you watch as he tosses your toga onto a growing pile of dirty garments. It is interesting to think about the logistics of this system. You could call it the original recycling program, though it isn't exactly the kind of recycling we talk about today. You watch as a young worker carries a bucket of aged liquid toward the washing vats. This liquid has been collected from jars placed on street corners around the neighborhood. You might think of it as a very strange sort of public service. Passers-by would contribute to these jars, and the laundry owners would collect them every morning. It was a win-win situation. The city stayed a bit cleaner, and the laundry got its cleaning supplies for free. At least, It was free until the emperors decided they wanted a piece of the action. As you stand there for a moment, letting the rhythm of the shop wash over you, you see the true work begin. The laundry process in Rome is not about soaking and waiting. It is about mechanical force. You see a worker jump into a large stone vat filled with water, a bit of clay, and that special ammonia-rich mixture. He begins to dance, but it is not a dance of joy. It is a rhythmic, heavy stepping motion. He jumps up and down on the clothes, using his body weight to force the cleaning solution through the thick wool fibers. This process is called fulling, and it is essentially a human-powered washing machine. The sound of the water splashing against the stone sides of the vat is steady and hypnotic. You notice that the workers hold onto small side walls or railings to keep their balance as they stomp. It looks exhausting, a constant cardio workout that lasts for hours. You realize that your toga is about to go through a very intense physical journey. First, it will be stomped in the cleaning mixture to remove the oils and dirt. Then, it will be moved to another vat of pure, clean water to be rinsed. Finally, it will be treated with a special type of white clay known as fuller's earth. This clay is incredibly absorbent and helps to pull out any remaining impurities while also bleaching the fabric to a brilliant, snowy white. If you were a very wealthy Roman, you might even request a treatment with sulfur fumes to make the toga glow with an almost artificial brightness. The Roman laundry system didn't really have a delicate setting, unless you count the workers trying their best not to slip and fall into the tubs. It was a rough, tough process designed for a rough, tough fabric. Wool is durable, but it requires this kind of aggressive treatment to stay fresh in a city of 1 million people. You think about how lucky you are that you don't have to do this yourself in a bucket behind your apartment building. The sheer scale of the operation is impressive. Every street has a shop like this, and every shop is part of a massive guild. These laundry workers were powerful people in the city, often forming their own unions and even participating in local politics. As you turn to leave the shop, you feel a bit lighter, even though you are leaving your clothes behind. The sun is higher now, warming the tops of the buildings and turning the morning mist into a memory. You begin your walk back through the city, noticing things you might have missed before. You see the large ceramic jars at the street corners and realize they aren't just there for decoration. You see the people in their bright, clean tunics and appreciate the hours of stomping and scrubbing that went into making them look that way. The city of Rome is a place of grand contradictions. It is a place of beautiful marble and dirty streets, of high philosophy and very practical, earthy solutions to everyday problems. Walking home, you pass a group of children playing with marbles near a fountain. The sound of their laughter and the splashing water creates a peaceful atmosphere. You find yourself leaning against a warm brick wall for a moment, just watching the world go by. There is no rush. Your toga won't be ready for a day or two, giving you a perfect excuse to move a little slower today. You think about how even the most powerful senators, men who decided the fate of whole nations, had to deal with the same laundry issues. They too had to send their expensive wool robes to be stomped on by men in vats of recycled waste. It is a great equalizer. No matter how much money or power you have, gravity and dirt affect everyone the same way. There is a gentle irony in the fact that the most dignified people in the world were walking around in clothes cleaned with the help of the most undignified materials. You reach your apartment building and start the climb back up the stairs. Each step feels a little heavier than the last, not because you are tired, but because the stillness of the morning is starting to settle into your bones. The air in the stairwell is cool and smells of old stone. When you reach your room, you notice how quiet it is. The bustle of the street is just a low hum now, like the sound of a distant ocean. You lie back down on your bed for a moment, looking up at the ceiling. The Romans had a saying, pecunia non olet, which means money does not smell. It was famously said by the Emperor Vespasian when his son criticized him for taxing the collection of urine from the city's public jars. Vespasian held up a gold coin and asked his son if it smelled bad. When the son said no, the emperor pointed out that the money came from the very industry his son was laughing at. It is a cheeky reminder that in history, as in life, the most useful things aren't always the most glamorous. You close your eyes and imagine the rhythmic sound of the Fullone's feet in the vats, the steady splash, splash, splash of the water. It is a soothing thought, a reminder that the world keeps turning, and people have always found ways to solve their problems with whatever they had on hand. You feel a sense of connection to those ancient people. We all wake up, we all get our clothes dirty, and we all look for a way to start fresh the next day. The sunlight in your room shifts, moving slowly across the floor as the morning progresses. You feel the warmth on your feet and the softness of the air. You think about the texture of the wool toga again. It is such a heavy, honest fabric. It doesn't hide anything. When it is clean, it is truly clean, and when it is dirty, it demands attention. There is something satisfying about that. There are no shortcuts in a Roman laundry. You can't just spray a bit of perfume and hope for the best. You have to do the work. You have to jump in the vat. You have to use the ammonia and the clay and the sun. It is a process of transformation, turning something dull and tired back into something bright and new. The thought of your toga drying in the Roman sun, draped over a wooden frame, is very peaceful. The sun does more than just dry the fabric. It acts as a final disinfectant and a natural bleach. The heat of the Mediterranean afternoon will bake the fibers, making them crisp and fresh. By the time you go back to pick it up, it will feel like a different garment entirely. It will be stiff and white, smelling of the earth and the wind, ready for another week of Roman life. As you drift closer to a nap, you feel a deep sense of calm. The worries of the day seem very far away. The sounds of the city, the carts, the voices, the birds, all blend together into a single, soft melody. You are safe in your room, tucked away from the chaos. The history of Rome isn't just about emperors and wars. It is about these quiet moments, these everyday tasks that bind us all together across the centuries. You imagine the millions of people who have lived in this city, each one of them dealing with the same sun, the same dust, and the same need for a clean shirt. You feel your muscles relaxing, starting with your toes and moving up to your shoulders. Your breathing is slow and even. The story of the Roman laundry is a story of ingenuity and hard work, but it is also a story of rest. After the work is done, after the stomping is finished and the clothes are hung to dry, there is a time for stillness. The laundryman will eventually sit down to a simple meal. The sun will eventually set over the Tiber River, and the city will fall into a deep, quiet sleep. You are just a part of that long, peaceful tradition. The weight of the day is lifting, just like the stains being lifted from the wool fibers. Everything is being cleaned. Everything is being refreshed. You don't have to do anything else today. The professionals are handling the hard part. You can just stay here, in the warmth of your room, and let the sounds of ancient Rome carry you away. The stone walls are solid and strong, protecting you from the outside world. The light is soft and golden. You are perfectly still, perfectly quiet, and perfectly at ease. Historians might debate the exact tax rates or the specific types of clay used in different regions, but they all agree on one thing. The Romans were obsessed with being clean. In a world without modern medicine, they understood instinctively that cleanliness was a form of protection. It was a way to keep the city healthy and the spirit high. And as you lie there, you feel that same sense of protection. You are clean, you are safe, and you are ready to rest. The journey has just begun. But for now, this moment of peace is all you need. The rhythmic stepping of the laundryman becomes a heartbeat, a steady pulse that guides you deeper into your dreams. The morning sun has climbed a little higher now, turning the deep indigo of the sky into a soft, hazy amber that seems to glow behind the rooftops. You decide to stay out in the city for a while longer, watching the world wake up in its strange and practical way. Your steps are slow and rhythmic as you walk away from the laundry shop, wandering deeper into the heart of the neighborhood. The air is beginning to warm, and with that warmth comes a deeper realization of how this city actually functions. You find yourself standing at a busy intersection where the narrow streets meet like the spokes of a wheel. There, tucked neatly into an alcove between a small tavern and a fruit stall, stands a large, rounded ceramic jar. It is made of thick, reddish-orange clay, its surface rough and cool to the touch where the shadows still linger. This is adolium, and it is the primary tool for the city's most unusual harvest. You lean against a stone pillar nearby, just watching. It is a quiet, steady process. Every few minutes, a man walking to work or a traveler entering the city stops by the jar. There is no fanfare and no conversation. It is a simple, everyday act of civic contribution. You realize that in Rome, nothing is ever truly wasted. While we might look at a public street corner and see a simple piece of pottery, the Romans saw a gold mine of chemical potential. You imagine the countless jars, like this one scattered across the city, acting as silent sentries in every alleyway and forum. They are the primary source of the ammonia that makes the city's laundry possible. It is a system that relies entirely on the collective participation of 1 million people, a silent agreement to keep the wheels of industry turning one drop at a time. You notice a young apprentice from the laundry shop you visited earlier. He is pulling a small wooden cart behind him, the wheels making a low, grinding sound against the cobblestones. He looks tired but steady, moving with the practiced ease of someone who has done this every morning since he was a boy. He stops at the large jar and begins the process of the morning collection. There is a soft, heavy slosh as he uses a long, handled wooden ladle to transfer the liquid into smaller, sealed containers on his cart. You watch the way the light catches the golden liquid, reflecting off the damp rim of the jar. It is a strange thing to find beautiful, but in the soft morning light, with the city breathing slowly around you, it feels like just another natural rhythm of life. Historians still argue whether these jars were placed there by the city government as a public sanitation measure, or if they were strictly private ventures, owned by the laundry guilds, to harvest their raw materials. It is a fascinating question to ponder as you watch the apprentice work. If they were private, it would mean the laundry owners were essentially renting out street space to collect their supplies. If they were public, it shows a level of urban planning that is almost modern in its efficiency. Either way, the result is the same. The streets stay a little bit cleaner, and the laundrymen get exactly what they need to keep the city's togas white. You find yourself smiling at the thought of a Roman city planner, sitting down with a map and marking out the most high traffic corners for jar placement, perhaps conducting a very early form of market research. The apprentice finishes his task at this corner and begins to move his cart toward the next one. You follow at a distance, your sandals making a light, tapping sound that echoes softly off the high walls of the apartments. You pass a small shop where an artisan is beginning to set out leather hides. You realize that the laundry industry isn't the only one that relies on this golden harvest. The tanners, those who turn animal skins into soft, durable leather for sandals and armor, also need the acidic properties of aged liquid to prepare their materials. It is a massive, invisible network of recycling that keeps the Roman economy humming. You think about how many people probably complained about the smell of these industries. Yet everyone wanted the clean clothes and the sturdy shoes they provided. It is the classic human dilemma, wanting the finished product without wanting to see the messy process that creates it. As you walk, you think about the Emperor Vespasian and his famous approach to this particular industry. He was a man of great practical wisdom who inherited a Roman treasury that was almost completely empty after the chaos of previous rulers. He looked at the city and saw opportunity where others saw only waste. He realized that if the laundrymen were making a profit using the city's donations, the government should probably get a cut. Thus, the urine tax, or the vectigal urina, was born. It was a bold move, and one that certainly led to a few jokes in the Roman baths. You imagine the tax collectors making their rounds, carefully measuring the contents of the jars and calculating the coins owed to the imperial treasury. It might not have been the most glamorous job in the empire, but it was certainly one of the most stable. You can almost hear the ghost of a conversation between Vespasian and his son, Titus, who was reportedly a bit disgusted by the whole idea. The emperor simply held up a gold coin and reminded his son that pecunia non olet, money does not smell. It is a profound thought to carry with you as you navigate the morning streets. The coin in your pocket is clean and bright, regardless of where it came from or the work that was done to earn it. This philosophy is what built the roads you are walking on and the aqueducts that bring water to the fountains. It is a celebration of the practical, the earthy, and the real. You feel a sense of respect for a society that could look at something so humble and see the foundation of a financial empire. The apprentice reaches a much larger collection point near a public bathhouse. Here, the jars are even bigger, almost as tall as a man. and the activity is more intense. Other workers from different laundries have arrived with their own carts, creating a small, quiet traffic jam of wooden wheels and ceramic vessels. There is no shouting, just the steady, rhythmic movement of ladles and the occasional heavy thud of a lid being secured. You notice the way the sunlight hits the dust motes in the air, creating shimmering pillars of light that dance between the workers. The smell is stronger here, a sharp, biting aroma that wakes up your senses. But it isn't entirely unpleasant. It smells like work, like productivity, and like the ancient world getting things done. A quirky tidbit comes to mind as you watch a man walk past the collection area, flashing a bright, confident smile. Some ancient sources, including the famous poet Catullus, poked fun at people who used a certain Spanish variety of this liquid as a form of mouthwash to whiten their teeth. It sounds absolutely horrifying to a modern ear, but the ammonia was indeed a powerful whitening agent. You imagine the bravest Romans gargling in the morning, convinced that the stinging sensation was just the price of beauty. It makes you appreciate your own simple toothbrush and minty paste back in your own time. You could call it the ultimate commitment to dental hygiene, though it probably made for some very awkward first dates. The carts are now fully loaded, and the workers begin the journey back to their respective Fullonica. You walk along with them, feeling like part of a slow, moving parade. The city is becoming more crowded now. Women are heading to the markets with baskets balanced on their heads, and groups of students are walking toward their tutors, their wooden tablets clinking against their belts. The contrast is striking, the high culture of education and commerce moving right alongside the humble carts of the laundry workers. But in Rome, these two worlds are inextricably linked. The teacher needs his tunic cleaned just as much as the laundryman needs his children to be taught. You follow the carts through a narrow archway and find yourself in a quieter part of the city, near the banks of the Tiber River. The air here is cooler and carries the scent of damp reeds and slow-moving water. The river is the final destination for all the city's waste. But before it gets there, it is filtered through this elaborate system of jars and vats. You watch as one of the apprentices stops to adjust a strap on his cart. He takes a moment to look out over the river, the morning sun reflecting off the water in a blinding sheet of silver. You take a moment too, breathing in the fresh, cool air. The world feels very old and very steady in this spot. You think about the logistics of the vintage collection. The laundrymen didn't want fresh liquid. They wanted it to sit for a while. The chemical process of breaking down urea into ammonia takes time. And the older the mixture, the more effective it becomes as a solvent. This means the jars weren't emptied every hour, but rather allowed to age, like a fine wine, though with a much less appealing bouque. You imagine the head fuller at the shop sniffing a bucket and nodding his approval, much like a sommelier checking a vintage. It is a strange comparison, but the level of expertise involved in Roman laundry was no less sophisticated than the arts of cooking or winemaking. The journey back to the shop takes you through the shadow of a great stone aqueduct. The massive arches reach toward the sky, carrying a constant stream of fresh water from the hills far away. This water will be used for the final rinse, the stage of the laundry process that demands purity. It is a beautiful irony. The most sophisticated engineering in the world is used to provide the water that will wash away the effects of the most primitive cleaning agents. The Roman world is a perfect circle of technology and nature, of the high and the low. You feel the cool shade of the aqueduct on your skin, a brief relief from the growing heat of the day. You see a group of laundry apprentices taking a short break by a small fountain. They aren't talking, just sitting on the stone rim and letting the spray from the water cool their faces. Their clothes are damp and stained with the white clay of their trade, but they look content. There is a certain peace in physical labor, in knowing that your work is essential and that the results can be seen and felt at the end of every day. You imagine their lives, defined by the rise and fall of the sun and the constant rhythm of the wash tubs. It is a simple life, but one that is deeply connected to the pulse of the city. The walk continues, and you find yourself back on the main street leading to the Fullonica. The sounds of the shop are louder now. The rhythmic splashing, the heavy thuds of the fulling vats, and the occasional chime of a metal tool. The morning's harvest is about to be put to use. You watch as the carts are wheeled through the wide doors, and the containers are unloaded with careful precision. Every drop is precious. This liquid will be mixed with water and a special type of alkaline clay to create the cleaning solution for the next batch of togas. You think about the unfortunate splash, risk that must have been a constant part of this job. One wrong move, one loose wheel on the cart, and your entire morning's work could end up all over your sandals. It requires a steady hand and a calm mind. You notice the workers move with a certain deliberate slowness, a grace that comes from years of experience. They don't rush because rushing leads to spills. There is a lesson in that for your own life, a reminder that the most important tasks often require the most patience. The sun is now fully golden, baking the stones of the street and making the shadows sharp and dark. You feel the warmth on your back, a gentle pressure that encourages you to slow down. The city is a busy place, but if you look closely, you can find these pockets of steady, quiet industry that feel like they have existed forever. The laundry process is a transformation, taking the most unwanted parts of human existence and turning them into something that allows for dignity and pride. A clean, white toga is a statement of resilience, a way of saying that even in a dusty, crowded city, we can still be bright. You find a stone bench near the shop and sit for a moment, letting the world flow past you. A stray cat stretches in a patch of sunlight nearby, its fur looking soft and warm. You feel a deep sense of calm, the kind that comes from understanding how things work. You aren't just a visitor in this city. You are someone who sees the hidden gears and the invisible connections. You understand why the jars are on the corners and why the emperor taxes them. You see the value in the golden liquid and the hard work of the apprentices. The air is filled with the sound of a distant bell and the chirping of birds in the eaves of the houses. It is a peaceful, domestic sound. You think about the millions of togas that have been washed in this city over the centuries. Each one represents a person with a story, a family, and a life. And behind every one of those stories is a laundryman with a vat and a jar on a street corner. It is a humble foundation for such a grand civilization, but it is a solid one. You close your eyes for a second, and the sounds of the city become a blur. The rhythmic slosh of the ladles, the grinding of the cart wheels, and the soft footsteps of the passers-by all blend into a single, soothing hum. You feel the weight of your own limbs, heavy and relaxed. The morning has been long, and the sun is warm. There is nothing left for you to do but watch and listen. The harvest is complete. The carts are unloaded, and the work of the day is in full swing. You think about the phrase, the aroma of success. For a Roman laundryman, that aroma was probably quite specific. It was the scent of ammonia and damp wool, the smell of a job being done right. You find yourself appreciating that aroma in a strange way. It is the scent of a city that knows how to take care of itself. It is the scent of a people who aren't afraid of a little hard work or a little dirt, if it means they can eventually stand in the forum in a robe that glows like the sun. The story of the jars is a story of community. It is about how 1,000,000 people can contribute to something bigger than themselves, even without realizing it. Every person who stopped at a jar this morning was a part of the laundry process. Every person who paid the urine tax was supporting the empire. It is a beautiful, messy, and incredibly efficient system. And as you sit there, feeling the warmth of the Roman morning, you feel a deep connection to it all. You are a part of the rhythm. You are a part of the history. The shadows of the buildings are beginning to shorten as midday approaches. The light is becoming more intense, turning the white stone of the temples into something almost too bright to look at. You decide it is time to head back to your room for a midday rest, just like many of the Romans will soon do. But as you walk away, you take one last look at the large ceramic jar on the corner. It stands there solid and patient, waiting for the next contribution. It is a humble object, but it is a vital one. It is a symbol of Roman ingenuity, a reminder that brilliance often begins in the most unexpected places. You feel a sense of completion as you walk. The morning mist is gone, the harvest is gathered, and the city is wide awake. You move with a slow, easy stride, your heart quiet and your mind at peace. The journey of the laundry is just beginning, but for now, you have seen the most important part. You have seen the foundation. You have seen the golden harvest of the streets. And as you find your way back through the winding alleys, the image of the golden liquid in the morning sun stays with you, a glowing reminder of the beauty to be found in the everyday. The high sun of the Roman afternoon is beginning to cast its weight over the city, making the stone benches in the forum almost too hot to touch. You decide to step back into the cool, damp shadows of the laundry shop, where the air is thick with a different kind of energy. The transition from the baking street to the interior of the Fullonica is like a gentle, cool wave washing over you. The light here is filtered and soft, bouncing off the wet stone surfaces and the ripples of water in the large basins. You notice that the rhythm of the shop has changed since you were here earlier. The initial bustle of receiving clothes and collecting materials has settled into the steady, hypnotic work of the actual washing. It is time for you to understand the most physical part of this process, the part that turns a simple chore into a rhythmic, almost musical labor. You find yourself standing at the edge of the washing area, looking down at a series of small, circular tubs built directly into the floor. These tubs are made of smooth, terracotta, colored clay, and are just deep enough to reach a man's knees. Each one is a private stage for a very specific kind of performance. You see a worker step into one of these tubs, his movements slow and deliberate. He isn't just standing there. He is preparing to perform the saltus fullonicus, or the fuller's jump. This is the heart of the Roman laundry system, a human, powered mechanical action that mimics the agitation of a modern washing machine. You watch as he places his hands on the low walls that separate the tubs. Steadying himself for the work ahead, the mixture in the tub is a cloudy, gray-green liquid, a potent combination of water, the aged ammonia you saw being collected earlier, and a generous amount of fuller's earth. This earth is a special type of clay, often imported from places like North Africa or the island of Lemnos, which has a natural ability to absorb oils and grease. Historians still argue whether the workers' feet suffered from chemical burns over time due to the high pH of the ammonia, or if the mixture actually acted as a weirdly effective, albeit unconventional, exfoliant that kept their skin surprisingly smooth. You look at the workers' feet and notice they are tough and weathered, the skin stained a light, earthy color from the clay. He begins to move, lifting one leg and then the other in a steady, marching rhythm. The sound is the first thing that captures your attention. It is a wet, heavy splashing, a rhythmic slapping of skin against soaked wool. You imagine yourself stepping into the tub next to him. The water would feel cool at first, a shocking contrast to the heat of the street outside. Then, you would feel the texture of the fabric beneath your toes. The wool of a toga is thick and coarse when wet, feeling like a heavy, sodden blanket. As you push your feet down, the fibers would resist you, pushing back with a soggy, stubborn weight. You would have to use your whole body, shifting your weight from hip to hip, to force the cleaning solution through the tight weave of the cloth. It is a slow, steady dance that requires more balance than you might expect. You can't help but think that this is the ultimate ancient HIIT workout, a high-intensity interval training session that lasts for hours without the benefit of a modern gym playlist or a fancy water bottle. There is no delicate cycle. In this shop, if you want the stains out, you have to be the machine. You imagine a Roman laundryman trying to explain his job to a modern person. He would probably find our electric machines quite lazy, wondering how a piece of spinning metal could ever have the same intuition for a stubborn wine stain as a pair of well-trained feet. You might call it a spa treatment for the clothes, though the spa in this case involves a lot more sweat and a lot less cucumber water. The worker in front of you seems to be in a trance, his eyes fixed on a point on the far wall. His breathing is deep and regular, matching the beat of his feet. This is the fuller's rhythm, a pace that can be maintained for the entire day. If he goes too fast, he will tire himself out before the first batch is done. If he goes too slow, the dirt will simply settle back into the fibers. It is a delicate balance of force and endurance. You watch the way the suds begin to form on the surface of the water, a thin, gray foam that carries away the dust of the Roman roads. Each stomp is a victory over the grime of the city, a small step toward the brilliance of a clean garment. A mainstream historical fact about these men is that they belong to one of the most organized and influential guilds in the city. The fullers weren't just random laborers. They were skilled craftsmen who understood the chemistry of their trade. They had their own shrines, their own festivals, and even their own patron goddess, Minerva. You can see the pride in the way the head fuller moves through the shop, checking the progress of each vat with a sharp, discerning eye. He isn't just looking for cleanliness, he is looking for the right feel of the wool. He knows that if the fulling is done correctly, the wool will not only be clean, but will also become slightly felted, making the fabric stronger and more durable. As you continue to observe, the scent of the shop becomes more complex. Over the sharp tang of the ammonia, there is now the earthy, damp smell of the wet clay and the heavy, animal scent of wet wool. It is a smell that speaks of the very foundations of Roman life. Wool was the primary material for almost everything: togas, tunics, blankets, and even some types of armor padding. To be a fuller was to be a guardian of the city's wardrobe. You imagine the millions of miles of wool fibers that have passed through these very tubs over the decades, each thread being squeezed and pounded by 1,000 different feet. It is a staggering thought, a mountain of fabric that keeps the empire clothed and dignified. For a quirky tidbit, you might find it interesting that the fullers were so central to Roman life that they even had a special place in the city's humor and theater. There are ancient jokes about fullers being particularly smelly, or about the fragrance of their shops being a dead giveaway of their profession. But beneath the jokes, there was a deep-seated respect. Everyone knew that without the fullers, the grand white marble of Rome would be populated by people in drab, dirty rags. The fullers were the ones who kept the white in the great white city. You could say they were the original image consultants, responsible for making sure every senator looked like a statesman and every bride looked like a goddess. The worker in the tub reaches for a wooden railing and pulls himself out, his legs dripping with the gray cleaning solution. He moves to a large stone basin filled with fresh, clear water, the final rinse. This is where the magic of the aqueducts comes into play. You hear the steady, musical trickling of the water as it flows from a lead pipe into the basin. The worker tosses the heavy, wet toga into the clear water, and for a moment, the fabric seems to expand, soaking up the purity. He begins a second, lighter dance, a rinsing motion that washes away the ammonia and the clay. The water turns cloudy for a moment, then clear again as the impurities are carried away through a drain in the floor. You notice a small group of younger apprentices nearby, perhaps only 10 or 12 years old. They are busy scrubbing the edges of the larger vats with stiff brushes made of dried heather. Their work is less rhythmic, but just as essential. They are the ones who ensure that no residue from a previous batch contaminates the next one. They move with a frantic energy that contrasts with the steady, mountain-like calm of the older men. You imagine they are dreaming of the day they will be tall enough and strong enough to have their own tub, to join the ranks of the jumpers and earn a full man's wage. In Rome, your career path was often as solid and unchanging as the stones beneath your feet. There is a certain irony in the fact that the most expensive, fine spun wool would end up here, being treated no differently than a common soldier's tunic. The vat is a great equalizer. The dirt of a beggar and the sweat of a king both yield to the same ammonia and the same rhythmic stomping. You find yourself thinking about the modern world, where we hide our laundry in quiet rooms or behind closed doors. In Rome, Laundry was a public spectacle, a noisy, smelly, and very social affair. You can imagine the workers sharing stories or singing songs to keep the beat. Though today the shop is quiet, filled only with the sounds of the work itself. The heat of the afternoon is now at its peak, and you feel a bead of sweat roll down your own neck. You appreciate the coolness of the shop even more. The thick stone walls act like a natural refrigerator, trapping the cool air from the morning and the moisture from the vats. You lean back against a pillar, letting your eyes drift shut for a moment. The sound of the splashing water begins to sound like a distant waterfall, a steady and calming white noise that drowns out the chaos of the city. You feel a deep sense of relaxation, the kind that comes from being in a place of purposeful, steady activity. There is no urgency here, only the requirements of the process. You can't rush the fulling. It takes as long as it takes. You think about the texture of the wool again. After the fulling, the fibers are plump and clean, having lost the heavy lanolin that made them feel greasy. The fabric will be softer now, more comfortable against the skin. You imagine the feeling of a freshly fulled tunic, slightly damp, cool and smelling of earth and water. It is a luxury that we often take for granted in our age of synthetic fabrics and instant drying. For a Roman, a clean garment was a sensory experience, a physical manifestation of order and civilization. You are starting to understand why they were so willing to put up with the smells and the taxes. The result was worth every bit of it. Historians still argue whether some Fullonica specialized in certain colors or types of fabric, much like modern boutique dry cleaners. It is possible that your toga went to a shop that was known for its brilliant whites, while a common worker's tunic went to a more general establishment. You imagine the different recipes of clay and aged liquids being guarded like trade secrets, passed down from father to son or master to apprentice. Maybe one shop used a bit more sulfur for bleaching, while another preferred a specific type of volcanic ash. It adds a layer of artistry to the labor, a reminder that even the most mundane tasks can be elevated by skill and knowledge. The worker who was rinsing the toga now lifts it out of the water with a grunt of effort. The wet wool is incredibly heavy, likely weighing 3 or 4 times what it does when dry. He drapes it over a large wooden beam, allowing the excess water to drain away in a steady, splashing stream. You watch the water hit the floor and flow toward the drain, a small river of cleanliness. The toga looks different now. It isn't white yet, but it has a brightness that it lacked before. The gray, dull film of the city has been stripped away, leaving behind the honest, natural color of the wool. You notice that your own breathing has slowed down, matching the rhythm of the shop. The stress of your walk through the crowded streets has evaporated, replaced by a calm, observant stillness. You are a witness to a transformation, a quiet observer of the ancient world's machinery. The laundry shop is a microcosm of Rome itself. Practical, hard-working, a little bit messy, but ultimately focused on the pursuit of excellence. You feel a deep respect for these men, for their strength and their patience. They are the ones who keep the city looking like the capital of the world, one jump at a time. A joke that would have made a Roman chuckle involves a fuller who was so good at his job that he accidentally washed himself so clean he became invisible. It's a silly thought, but it reflects the almost magical quality They attributed to the cleaning process. To take something stained and ruined and make it new again is a powerful thing. You feel a similar sense of renewal just by being here. The rhythmic sounds and the cool air are a tonic for your tired mind. You don't have to do anything. You just have to exist in this space and let the history wash over you. The shadows in the shop are starting to grow longer as the sun moves toward the west. The light catches the steam rising from a small hearth in the corner, where a pot of water is being heated for a specific treatment. The mist swirls in the air, creating ghost-like shapes that dance above the vats. You watch the apprentices begin to move the drained clothes toward the drying area, their small frames straining under the weight of the wet fabric. Every part of this process is physical, a reminder of a time when everything we owned was the result of human hands and human effort. You think about the scent of productivity. Again, it is a strange thing to appreciate, but in this context it makes perfect sense. It is the smell of a city that is alive and functioning. It is the smell of care. You find yourself leaning into it, no longer bothered by the sharpness of the ammonia. It has become just another part of the atmosphere, like the scent of the river or the smell of the dust. You are becoming acclimated to the Roman world, finding the beauty and the peace in its most practical corners. The head fuller approaches you, or rather, he moves past you to inspect the toga on the beam. He runs a hand over the fabric, feeling the damp fibers. He nods to himself, a small gesture of satisfaction. The work is good. The dance has been successful. You feel a strange sense of relief, as if you were the one who had been doing the stomping. There is a communal joy in a job well done, a shared understanding of the value of hard work. The toga will now move on to the next stage, but the most intense part of its journey is over. You watch as the worker who did the fulling takes a moment to sit on the edge of his tub. He wipes his forehead with a damp cloth and takes a long drink of water from a ceramic cup. His muscles are visible under his skin, a testament to the thousands of miles he has marched in place. He looks tired, but there is a quiet dignity in his posture. He has done his part. He has contributed his strength to the city's dignity. You feel a sudden, sharp connection to him, a recognition of the universal human experience of labor and rest. The shop is starting to wind down for the afternoon break, a time when the heat is at its most intense, and the city takes a collective breath. The splashing sounds fade, replaced by the soft murmur of the workers talking among themselves. You decide to stay for a few more minutes, soaking in the silence. The water in the basins is still now, reflecting the darkening ceiling of the shop. The world feels very still, very ancient, and very safe. You think about how many people have stood where you are standing, watching this same process. For 1,000 years, this was how the world got clean. It is a long, unbroken chain of human activity, a rhythm that has pulsed through the centuries. You are just the latest link in that chain. The thought is comforting, a reminder that even in a world of constant change, some things remain the same. We still need to clean our clothes, and we still find a certain peace in the process of making things right. The story of the wash tub is a story of rhythm. It is the beat of the heart, the pace of the walk, and the cadence of the jump. It is a reminder that life has its own natural timing, and that sometimes the best thing we can do is just find the beat and follow it. As you prepare to leave the shop and head back into the sunlight, you carry that rhythm with you. It is a slow, steady pulse that guides your steps and calms your mind. The ancient dance of the laundryman is over for now, but its echoes will stay with you long after you have left the stones of Rome behind. You take one last look at the empty tubs, their surfaces shining in the low light. They look like silent monuments to the day's work. The water is quiet, the clay is settled, and the wool is clean. Everything is as it should be. You turn and walk toward the door, the warmth of the street waiting to greet you. But in your mind, you are still in the tub, feeling the cool water and the heavy fabric. Moving to the timeless beat of the Roman afternoon, you feel a deep, sleepy satisfaction, the kind that comes from knowing that even the smallest task can be a grand performance if you just find the right rhythm. You leave the rhythmic, damp echoes of the washing vats behind and step through a low stone archway, moving into a spacious, open-air courtyard that feels like a sudden, warm embrace. The contrast is immediate and striking. After the dim, cool interior of the Fullonica, the Mediterranean sun feels like a heavy, golden weight on your shoulders, and the light is so intense that you have to squint for a moment as your eyes adjust. This courtyard is the heart of the final transformation, a place where the elements of earth and fire and air come together to finish the work that the water and the laundryman's feet began. The floor here is paved with flat, sun-baked bricks that radiate a gentle heat, making the air shimmer just slightly above the ground. You find a spot in the shade of a vine-covered trellis and settle in, watching as the next stage of your toga's journey unfolds in the brilliant light of a Roman afternoon. The air out here is different from the sharp, stinging atmosphere of the washing rooms. It is drier, smelling of hot dust, wild thyme growing in the cracks of the walls, and the peculiar, chalky scent of drying minerals. You see several large wooden tables arranged in rows, and on these tables are piles of what looks like fine, white powder. This is the earthly soil that gives the laundry its name. This substance, known as fuller's earth, is a very specific type of volcanic clay, often called Simoleon earth after the island of Kimolos, where the best variety was mined. You watch an apprentice reach into a large sack and pull out a handful of the stuff. It is so fine that it flows between his fingers like silk, creating a small, ghostly cloud of white dust that catches the sunlight and turns into a spray of tiny, glowing diamonds. The worker begins to apply this clay to the damp garments that have just come from the rinsing vats. He doesn't just sprinkle it, he rubs it deep into the thick wool fibers with a steady, circular motion. You can almost feel the texture of the clay from where you sit. It is cool and slippery, possessing a strange, soapy quality that feels remarkably soothing. This is the original stain remover, because wool is naturally porous and oily. It holds onto dirt with a stubborn grip. The clay acts like a microscopic sponge, its molecular structure designed by nature to pull the grace and the deep-seated grime out of the fabric and into itself. It is a slow, methodical process, a massage for the fabric that ensures every inch of the toga is treated with the same care. A mainstream historical fact that is often overlooked is that the Roman laundry industry was the largest consumer of these specialized clays in the ancient world. They weren't just using whatever dirt they found on the ground. They were importing thousands of tons of this specific mineral from all over the Mediterranean. It was a massive logistical operation, involving ships and carts and warehouses, all dedicated to the pursuit of the perfect white robe. You might think of it as a very early version of a global supply chain for cleaning products. Without this clay, the Roman dream of a snowy, white citizen would have been impossible, leaving everyone in a sea of dull, yellowish beige. As you watch the worker, you might find yourself thinking that this looks suspiciously like a modern beauty treatment. You could call it a full body clay mask for your wardrobe, though the client, in this case, is a 6-yard piece of heavy wool rather than a person at a high-end spa. It is one of those moments where history feels very close to the present. We still use similar clays today in everything from facial masks to industrial filters. The Romans simply realized its potential early on, using the earth itself to clean the things they took from the earth. There is a gentle irony in using dirt to remove dirt, a cycle of cleaning that feels both ancient and incredibly clever. Historians still argue whether the fullers used different grades of clay for different social classes, perhaps reserving the rarest, whitest Cretan earth for the elite, while using local, grittier substitutes for the common tunics. You imagine the head fuller inspecting a shipment of clay with the same intensity a baker might use to check his flour. If the clay was too red, it might stain the wool. If it was too coarse, it might damage the delicate fibers. It was a trade that required a deep knowledge of the land and its resources. You watch the apprentice finish a section of the toga and move on to the next, his hands white and ghost-like as he works. Once the clay has been thoroughly worked into the fabric, the toga is ready for the fire stage of its treatment. You notice a curious structure in the corner of the courtyard, a large, bell-shaped frame made of woven wicker. It looks like a giant bird cage or perhaps a very large basket turned upside down. This is the Viminia cavea. You watch as two workers carefully drape a damp, clay-covered toga over the outside of this frame, spreading it out so that it covers the wicker completely. It looks like a white tent sitting in the sun. Then, one of the workers brings out a small ceramic brazier filled with glowing coals and a handful of yellow, crystalline rocks. This is sulfur. The worker places the brazier directly under the wicker frame, and as the heat hits the sulfur, a thin, pale smoke begins to rise. This is a quirky tidbit that most people don't realize. The Romans used chemical bleaching long before the invention of modern laboratories. The sulfur fumes react with the moisture in the wool to create a mild acid that strips away the natural yellowing of the fabric. It is a highly effective, if somewhat smelly, way to achieve that blinding white color that the Romans loved so much. You see the yellow smoke curling up through the wicker, trapped by the heavy fabric of the toga. It is a slow, motion chemical reaction happening right before your eyes. The scent that drifts your way is sharp and unmistakable, the smell of a struck match or a distant volcano. It is the scent of 1,000 rotten eggs, and you find yourself wrinkling your nose just a little. You imagine the laundry workers spending their entire lives surrounded by this smell, their tunics and even their hair likely absorbing the sulphurous aroma. You could say it was the signature perfume of the Roman professional class, a scent that screamed, "I have clean clothes." To everyone you met, it is a small price to pay for such a brilliant result. The toga sits there in the smoke, soaking in the fumes, while the sun beats down from above, accelerating the process. The sun is not just a source of heat in this process, it is a vital ingredient. The intense UV rays of the Mediterranean sun act as a natural bleach, working in tandem with the sulfur and the clay to break down any remaining pigments in the wool. You see the long drying racks, called tendiculae, stretching across the courtyard. These are large wooden frames with adjustable bars that allow the fabric to be stretched tight. This prevents the wool from shrinking as it dries and helps to pull out any wrinkles. You watch as the workers move the smoked toga from the wicker cage to one of these racks. They pull the fabric taut, securing it with small wooden pegs until it is as smooth as a drum. The sound of the fabric being stretched is a series of low, rhythmic creaks from the wooden frames, followed by the soft, snapping sound of the pegs being driven home. It is a peaceful, industrious sound that blends with the distant hum of the city. You see dozens of togas and tunics hanging on these racks, looking like a forest of white sails caught in a calm harbor. The wind picks up slightly, and the fabric begins to ripple and flap with a gentle, muffled sound. It is a rhythmic, soothing noise, like the sound of large wings slowly beating the air. You feel the breeze on your face, carrying away the sharpness of the sulfur and replacing it with the clean, warm scent of the sun-baked stones. You think about the golden harvest of the morning and the dance in the wash tubs, and you realize how much work has gone into this single piece of clothing. A Roman toga isn't just an outfit, it's an engineering project. It represents the labor of the farmers who raised the sheep, the weavers who spun the wool, the merchants who shipped the clay, and the fullers who are now guiding it through its final trial by fire and light. It is a testament to Roman persistence. They didn't just want things to be functional, they wanted them to be perfect. They wanted to walk into the light of the Forum and reflect that light back at the world. There is a certain beauty in the way the light interacts with the drying clothes. The wet wool is heavy and a bit gray, but as the sun does its work, you can see the color shifting. The moisture evaporates into the warm air, leaving behind the white clay and the bleached fibers. The fabric starts to glow, becoming a brilliant, snowy white that is almost painful to look at directly. You imagine the feeling of that fabric, crisp, warm, and slightly stiff from the sun. It would feel like wearing a piece of the light itself. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the courtyard seep into your bones. The world feels very still, very focused, and very bright. A light joke comes to mind as you watch a small lizard scuttle across the hot bricks toward a patch of shade. You imagine the lizard thinking that these humans have a very strange way of spending their time, jumping in tubs and smoking their clothes on big wicker cages. To the lizard, the sun is just for warming up. To the Roman, the sun is a high-tech bleaching machine. You could call the sun the only employee in the shop that doesn't demand a wage, though it certainly makes everyone else work a lot harder. It is the ultimate free resource, and the Romans were masters at putting it to work. As you sit there, you notice the rhythmic movement of the shadows as the sun begins its slow descent. The long, white rows of drying clothes cast stripes of shade across the floor, creating a pattern that looks like the keys of a giant piano. You feel the passage of time in a very physical way. This isn't a process that can be rushed. You have to wait for the sulfur to do its work, and you have to wait for the sun to pull the water out of the fibers. It is a lesson in patience, a reminder that the best things take time. In our world, we are used to dryers that finish in 40 minutes, but here, the pace is set by the rotation of the earth and the intensity of the weather. Historians still argue whether the fullers had a way to protect the clothes if a sudden rainstorm hit the city. Did they have large tarps of oiled leather, or did they simply have to scramble to bring everything inside? You imagine the chaos of a sudden summer downpour, the workers running to unpeg the heavy, wet wool before it becomes even heavier. It would be a frantic, noisy moment in an otherwise quiet day. But today the sky is a deep, unbroken blue, a perfect dome of azure that promises hours of steady heat. You are safe from the rain, and your toga is safe on its rack. You look at the different types of garments drying nearby. There are common tunics of dark brown or gray wool, belonging to laborers and slaves, which didn't require the intense bleaching process. They are simply washed and hung to dry, their colors earthy and muted. Then there are the togas of the citizens, the brilliant whites that stand out like beacons. And occasionally, you see a garment with a purple stripe, the toga praetexta worn by magistrates and young boys. The purple dye, made from the crushed shells of sea snails, was incredibly expensive and required special care to ensure it didn't bleed into the white wool. You see a master fuller hovering near one of these striped togas, checking the tension of the rack with extra caution. The detail of the sulfur treatment is fascinating when you think about the chemistry involved. The sulfur dioxide produced by the burning coals acts as a reducing agent, which is a different way of bleaching than the oxidizing agents we use in modern bleach. This means the Roman method was actually quite gentle on the wool fibers, preserving the strength of the fabric while removing the color. It shows a sophisticated, intuitive understanding of materials that didn't rely on textbooks or periodic tables. They just knew what worked, passed down through centuries of trial and error. You feel a sense of awe at their ingenuity, their ability to harness the breath of the underworld, to make their clothes look like they came from the heavens. The heat of the afternoon is starting to soften, the sharp edges of the light turning into a more golden, mellow glow. You feel a deep sense of tranquility. The laundry shop, with all its smells and its noise, has become a place of meditation. You are watching the world become clean. It is a powerful metaphor for renewal, for the idea that no matter how much dust we gather in our journey through the city, there is always a way to start fresh. The clay, the sulfur, and the sun are the tools of that renewal. You feel a similar process happening within yourself, the stress and noise of the day being bleached away by the steady rhythm of the courtyard. You notice a worker taking a small brush and gently flicking away some of the dried clay from a toga that has finished its drying time. The white dust falls away in a soft cloud, revealing the fabric beneath. It is beautiful, a rich, deep white with a subtle texture that catches the light. The wool looks plump and healthy, not thinned or damaged by the process. This is the mark of a master fuller. He has navigated the dangers of the chemicals and the heat, and he has produced something of quality. You find yourself nodding in appreciation a silent salute to a craft well practiced. You think about the scent of the sun. It is a real thing, a combination of ozone and warm fabric that is one of the most comforting smells in the world. As the sulfur smell fades into the background, the scent of the sun, dried wool, begins to dominate the courtyard. It smells like home, like safety, and like the end of a long day. You imagine wrapping yourself in that warm, white wool, the fabric holding onto the heat of the afternoon, and releasing it slowly against your skin. It would be a heavy, comforting embrace, a physical reminder of the care that went into its creation. The shadows of the drying racks are now long enough to reach your feet. The air is cooling slightly, a gentle herald of the approaching evening. You watch the workers begin to unpeg the first batch of clothes, their movements efficient and practiced. They fold the fabric with care, creating neat stacks of white wool that look like blocks of marble. Each stack is a finished piece of work, ready for the final touches of brushing and pressing. You feel a sense of satisfaction, as if you have completed the work yourself. The journey of the toga through the fire and the light is coming to an end. The story of the earthly soils and the sunlight is a story of cooperation between man and nature. The Romans didn't try to fight the environment. They invited it in. They used the clay from the islands, the sulfur from the earth, and the light from the sky. They turned the constraints of their world into a sophisticated technology. It is a reminder that we are always at our best when we work with the world around us rather than against it. You feel a deep connection to that philosophy, a sense of being grounded in the reality of the earth and the sky. You take a deep breath of the cooling air, feeling the clarity of the moment. The courtyard is a space of transformation, a place where the old becomes new and the dark becomes light. You have seen the process from the inside, and you have understood the value of every step. The sun is now a deep orange ball hanging low in the sky, casting a warm, reddish light over the white forest of togas. The world looks like a painting, a masterpiece of light and shadow that captures the very soul of Rome. You find yourself drifting toward a light sleep, the rhythmic flapping of the fabric acting as a lullaby. The worries of the future and the echoes of the past are all bleached away, leaving only the peaceful present. You are safe in the courtyard, protected by the high stone walls and the steady work of the fullers. The history of the world is written in these quiet moments, in the way a man rubs clay into wool, or the way the sun dries a wet cloth. You are a witness to that history, and you are part of its long, enduring peace. As the light fades, the courtyard begins to grow quiet. The workers move with a soft, muffled tread, their voices low and respectful of the coming night. The day's work is almost done. The togas are clean, the clay is used, and the sun has fulfilled its promise. You feel a deep, sleepy gratitude for the warmth and the light. The journey of the laundry has reached its peak, and now it is time to slowly wind down toward the rest of the evening. You close your eyes, the image of the brilliant white fabric dancing in your mind like a dream of purity and light. The story of the Roman sun is a story of endurance. It is the same sun that shines on us today, a constant link between our world and theirs. When you feel the warmth of a summer afternoon, you are feeling the same energy that bleached the togas of the Caesars. It is a comforting thought, a reminder that we are never truly alone in time. We share the same light, the same earth, and the same quiet need for a fresh start. And as you drift off, you feel that light still warming you, a golden thread that binds you to the heart of the ancient city. As you step away from the quiet, sun-soaked courtyard where the clothes are drying, you find yourself back on the main thoroughfare of the district. The afternoon sun has turned the street into a canyon of gold and deep, velvet shadows. You notice that the activity here is different than it was in the morning. While the workers are busy with the physical labor inside the shops, the owners and managers are engaged in a different kind of work out here on the stone sidewalks. You see men with wooden tablets and iron styluses tucked into their belts, moving between the shops with a sense of purpose. This is the world of Roman business, a complex web of money, taxes, and powerful guilds that keeps the laundry industry afloat. You find a smooth, cool stone bench under the shade of a portico and sit for a moment, letting the busy life of the Roman economy swirl around you like a gentle tide. The laundry industry is not just a collection of small shops. It is a massive, organized machine that stretches across the entire empire. In every city, from the cold northern borders of Britain to the desert edges of Egypt, the Fullers are a force to be reckoned with. You look down the street and see several Fullonica lined up in a row, their wide entrances revealing the bustling activity within. Each shop is a hive of industry, and each one is part of a local guild or collegium. These guilds are the ancient equivalent of a labor union and a social club rolled into one. They set the prices, they protect their members from unfair competition, and they even organize grand banquets and religious festivals. You imagine a guild meeting where the air is thick with the scent of wine, and the shop owners discuss the rising cost of Fuller's earth or the latest decree from the local magistrate. It is a world of professional pride and shared secrets. A mainstream historical fact that underscores the importance of this industry is the legendary urine tax introduced by the Emperor Vespasian. You think about the silver coins clinking in the pouches of the men walking past you. Vespasian was a man who understood that a great empire requires a great deal of money to maintain its roads, its armies, and its grand public works. When he looked at the laundry industry, he didn't see a messy or smelly chore. He saw a steady stream of revenue. By taxing the collection of the liquid used in the vats, he turned a humble street-side process into a pillar of the imperial treasury. It was a brilliant, if somewhat controversial, move that helped stabilize the Roman economy after years of civil war and waste. You can almost feel the weight of those coins in the air, a physical manifestation of the emperor's practical wisdom. Being a tax collector in ancient Rome was likely the ancient version of being the person who brings a small, sad salad to a pizza party. Everyone knows it is necessary for health, but nobody is particularly happy to see you arrive. You imagine the laundry owners grumbling as they count out their sestertii for the official, their faces tight with the universal human dislike of giving away hard-earned money. You see a man in a clean, official-looking tunic standing near a shop entrance, his wooden tablet balanced on one knee as he makes careful notations. He is the link between the humble wash tub and the golden palace of the emperor. Every splash of water in the vat and every handful of clay used on a toga eventually finds its way into the imperial ledgers. It is a reminder that no one, Not even a lowly laundry apprentice is truly outside the reach of the law. Historians still argue whether the tax was gathered directly from the fullers themselves based on their production, or if there was a complex middle-man system where neighborhood collectors paid for the right to harvest the street jars, that then sold the contents to the shops. It is a fascinating puzzle of ancient bureaucracy. You watch the official finish his notes and move on to the next shop, his sandals making a sharp, rhythmic sound on the pavement. If there were middle-men, they were likely the ones who felt the pressure of the tax the most. Squeezed between the demands of the emperor and the bargaining of the laundry masters, you feel a sense of appreciation for the sheer complexity of the system. It isn't just about cleaning clothes. It is about maintaining an intricate balance of supply, demand, and government regulation. You might find it funny to imagine a guild meeting where the most heated debate of the night isn't about politics or war, but about the specific quality of the latest shipment of North African clay. A Fuller's Guild meeting probably had the best attendance in the city, because no one wanted to miss the latest gossip, and the sharp smell of the trade likely kept the outsiders away, ensuring their secrets stayed within the group. You see a group of shop owners gathered near a fountain, their voices low and serious. They are likely discussing the upcoming elections for the local magistrates. In many Roman towns, the Fullers were a powerful voting bloc. They had the money, the organization, and the numbers to influence who ran the city. You imagine them walking to the forum together on election day, a sea of white togas representing a unified front of industrial power. A quirky or fringe tidbit that adds color to this picture can be found on the walls of the city itself. In places like Pompeii, archaeologists have found election slogans painted directly onto the walls of laundry shops. These weren't just random graffiti. They were official endorsements from the guild. A sign might say that the Fullers of the neighborhood all support a specific candidate because he promised to repair the local water pipes or lower the street cleaning fees. It shows that these workers weren't just laborers, they were active, influential citizens who knew how to use their collective voice. You look at the walls around you, imagining the bright red paint of the slogans and the pride the workers felt in seeing their guild's name displayed so prominently. The laundry shop was a political headquarters as much as it was a place of work. The afternoon light is beginning to turn a deeper shade of amber, and the heat is starting to fade into a comfortable warmth. You notice a delivery cart being pulled up to the curb. It is loaded with heavy ceramic amphorae, the kind used to transport wine or oil, but these are marked with different symbols. They are likely filled with specialized cleaning agents, or perhaps the expensive purple dyes used for the borders of magistrate togas. The logistical effort required to keep these shops running is staggering. Think of the thousands of ships crossing the Mediterranean, the hundreds of carts navigating the mountain passes, and the countless workers loading and unloading the supplies. Every clean toga you see in the street is the final result of a global effort. You feel a sense of connection to the wider world, a realization that even the most local task is tied to the vast reaches of the empire. The emperor's tax was essentially the first pay-to-go subscription service in history, though the oozers of the street jars weren't exactly the ones getting the premium features. or the ad-free experience. It is a cheeky way to think about it, but it captures the essence of Roman ingenuity. They took a basic human necessity and turned it into a profitable public utility. You look at a large jar on the corner, now mostly empty after the morning collection, and you see it through the eyes of a Roman accountant. It isn't just a jar, it is a source of revenue, a chemical factory, and a social necessity. Everything in Rome has a purpose, and everything is measured, weighed, and accounted for. There is a strange kind of comfort in that level of order, a feeling that the world is being looked after by a very thorough, if somewhat demanding, management team. You watch as a young boy, likely the son of a shop owner, runs past you with a bundle of clean tunics balanced on his head. He moves with a grace that comes from a lifetime of practice, navigating the crowds without dropping a single piece of fabric. This is the future of the industry, the next generation of fullers who will take over the vats and the ledgers. The Roman world is built on these family traditions, the passing of skills and shops from father to son. You imagine the boy one day standing where his father stands, negotiating with the tax collectors and leading the guild meetings. The continuity of life in the city is a soothing thought, a reminder that while empires may rise and fall, the basic work of living continues in a steady, unbroken rhythm. The sounds of the street are beginning to change as the workday starts to wind down. You hear the rhythmic banging of shutters being closed and the calls of vendors selling the last of their wares. The air is cooling, and the scent of the city is shifting from the sharp smells of industry to the softer, warmer smells of cooking fires and evening flowers. You feel a deep sense of relaxation settling over you. The business of the laundry is complex and demanding, but it is also a source of stability and pride. You are seeing the backbone of the city, the practical, hard-working foundation that allows the grand speeches and the marble temples to exist. Without the fullers and their taxes, Rome would not be Rome. As you sit on your bench, you think about the money that passes through these shops. The silver denarii and the bronze sestertii are the lifeblood of the city, flowing like the water in the aqueducts. You imagine the coins traveling from the pocket of a senator to the hand of a laundry owner, then to the pouch of a tax collector, and finally to the imperial treasury to pay for a new bridge or a public feast. It is a beautiful, circular journey. Every person is a part of the chain, and every task, no matter how humble, contributes to the whole. You feel a sense of belonging in this grand system, a small but important witness to the workings of the world. There is a certain irony in the fact that the most dignified citizens are the ones most dependent on the labor of the fullers. A senator cannot show his face in the curia without a perfectly white toga, and a general cannot celebrate a triumph without his robes being cleaned and pressed to perfection. The fullers hold the image of the empire in their hands. They are the ones who define what it means to look like a Roman. You look at the people walking past, the merchants in their sturdy tunics, the women in their colorful stole, and the occasional citizen in his formal toga. They are all walking advertisements for the skill and the industry of the laundry shops. You feel a surge of respect for the men in the vats, the ones whose feet and hands make this display of dignity possible. Historians often point out that the Roman economy was far more sophisticated than we might assume. They had banking systems, insurance for shipping, and complex contracts for labor and materials. The laundry industry was a perfect example of this sophistication. A shop owner might have a contract with a local villa to handle all their laundry for a year, or a deal with a merchant to provide a steady supply of fuller's earth from a specific quarry. These were not just random arrangements. They were carefully negotiated business deals. You imagine the rustle of papyrus scrolls as contracts are signed and sealed with wax. It is a world of law and order, of promises made and kept. You find the thought of all that organization very calming, a reminder that the world is more than just chaos. You notice a small shrine tucked into a niche between two shops. It is dedicated to Minerva, the patron goddess of the fullers. A few small lamps are burning in the twilight, their flickering flames casting a warm glow on the stone. There are fresh flowers and a small bowl of grain left as an offering. This is the spiritual side of the business, the recognition that even the most practical work is part of a larger, divine order. The fullers don't just work for the emperor or the guild. They work under the watchful eye of the gods. You feel a sense of peace looking at the shrine, a reminder that there is a place for quiet reflection even in the heart of a busy city. The gods, like the tax collectors, are always there, but they are a much more comforting presence. The shadows have now covered the entire street, and the sky above is a pale, dusky violet. The noise of the city is fading to a low, rhythmic hum. You decide it is time to get up and continue your walk. But your steps are slow and effortless. You feel the weight of the day's knowledge in your mind, a rich tapestry of history and business and human effort. You have seen how the laundry is cleaned, but you have also seen how it is managed, taxed, and respected. You have seen the power of the guilds and the reach of the emperor. You have understood that in Rome, everything is connected and everything has value. You walk past a shop where the owner is having a quiet conversation with his head apprentice. They aren't shouting or arguing. They are simply reviewing the day's work and planning for tomorrow. There is a sense of mutual respect in their posture, a shared commitment to the quality of their trade. You find this very heartening. Even in a world of taxes and competition, there is still room for personal connection and professional pride. The laundry shop is more than just a place of business. It is a community, a family, and a home. You feel a deep sense of warmth as you watch them, a feeling of being safe in a world that knows how to take care of its own. The story of the Roman laundry industry is a story of resilience. It survived wars, plagues, and changes in leadership because it was essential. People will always need to be clean, and there will always be those who find a way to make it happen. You think about the perfume of money again and you smile. It isn't a smell of waste or dirt. It is the smell of productivity, of ingenuity, and of a civilization that refuses to be held back by the mundane. Rome took the most basic elements of life and turned them into a grand, organized, and profitable enterprise. You feel a sense of inspiration from that, a reminder that even the most difficult problems can be solved with a bit of practical wisdom and a lot of hard work. As you reach the end of the street and prepare to turn toward the quieter residential areas, you take one last look back at the district of the fullers. The shops are mostly dark now, but you can still see the outlines of the vats and the drying racks against the evening sky. They look like the ruins of a great temple, monuments to the industry that keeps the city bright. You feel a deep, sleepy satisfaction, the kind that comes from knowing the world is in good hands. The laundrymen are resting, the tax collectors have gone home, and the emperor is safe in his palace. The city is at peace, and so are you. The rhythmic sounds of the city, the closing shutters, the distant voices, the evening birds, all blend into a single, soothing lullaby. You move with a slow, steady gait, your heart quiet, and your mind at rest. The journey of the day has been a long and fascinating one. But the most important lesson you have learned is that order and industry are the keys to a peaceful life. You carry that lesson with you as you walk, a golden thread of understanding that binds you to the ancient world. You are a part of the story, a witness to the greatness of Rome in its most humble and practical forms. You think about the texture of the silver coins again, feeling their cold, smooth surfaces in your imagination. They are the symbols of a world that works, a world that rewards effort and values quality. You feel a sense of security in that, a feeling that you are part of a system that makes sense. The Roman laundry industry is a microcosm of that system, a perfect example of how human beings can work together to create something beautiful and lasting. And as you drift closer to your own rest, you feel a deep, sleepy gratitude for the workers, the owners, and even the tax collectors. They are all part of the dance, and they are all part of the peace. The night air is cool and fresh, carrying the scent of the river and the damp earth. You are almost home, and the thought of your own bed is very welcoming. But even as you prepare for sleep, the images of the Fullonica stay with you. The white clay, the golden liquid, the heavy wool, and the clinking coins. They are the sights and sounds of a world that is vibrant, alive, and deeply, wonderfully real. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the history of the busy shops and the emperor's taxes wash over you like a gentle, rhythmic tide. You are safe, you are clean, and you are part of the grand, eternal story of Rome. You move back inside from the cooling courtyard, your feet finding the familiar, smooth indentations in the stone floor. The air in this part of the shop is much drier and carries a soft, hazy quality as the dust of the afternoon begins to settle in the slanting rays of the setting sun. This is the finishing room, a place of quiet precision where the raw, cleaned wool is transformed into the soft, dignified fabric of a Roman citizen. The intense labor of the vats and the chemical drama of the sulfur are over, and now the work becomes a matter of touch and patience. You see long wooden benches polished to a high sheen by years of contact with fine fabric, and on these benches the dried togas are laid out like sleeping giants. The room smells of aged wood, a hint of beeswax, and the deep, clean scent of natural wool that has been purified by the sun. You watch an older worker, a man whose hands are calloused, but move with the delicacy of a musician as he picks up a tool that looks like a small, spiky piece of nature. This is a teasel, the dried head of a thistle plant, covered in tiny, stiff hooks that are perfect for the next stage of the process. He begins to brush the surface of the toga, a process known as carding or raising the nap. You hear the soft, rhythmic sound of the hooks catching on the wool fibers, a gentle whisper that seems to fill the quiet room. It is a slow, methodical movement, pulling the tiny fibers upward to create a soft, fuzzy texture. This makes the wool feel warmer and look much more luxurious, hiding the weave of the fabric and giving it a solid, uniform appearance. You might imagine that a Roman laundry would use some kind of complex metal brush for this, but the humble thistle was so effective that it remained the industry's standard for centuries. In fact, you could say that the laundrymen were the original gardeners of fashion, carefully cultivating the texture of the empire, one stroke at a time. It is a peaceful sight, watching the repetitive motion of the brush. You feel your own shoulders dropping as you follow the rhythm. It is the ancient version of a lint roller, though it does much more than just clean. It restores the soul of the fabric. If you were a perfectionist fuller, you might spend 3 hours brushing the same toga until the surface felt like a cloud, a level of dedication that would make even a modern tailor look a bit rushed. A mainstream historical fact about this stage is the use of the officina plantaria, or the pressing workshop. Once the wool had been brushed and the nap raised, it was often incredibly fluffy and a bit wild. To make it look professional and sharp, it had to be smoothed down again, but in a controlled way. This is where the massive screw presses come into play. You see a large wooden frame standing against the far wall, a masterpiece of ancient engineering. 2 thick vertical beams are connected by a heavy horizontal crossbar, through which a massive wooden screw has been carved. This is the pressura, the tool that gives a Roman toga its final, crisp authority. It is a solid, imposing structure that looks like it could hold up the roof of the shop. Yet it is used for the most delicate of tasks. You watch as the brush toga is folded with extreme care. This is not the quick, casual folding you might do with a T-shirt at home. The workers align the edges with mathematical precision, ensuring that no stray wrinkles are trapped inside. They place layers of smooth parchment or thin wooden boards between the folds to keep the fabric perfectly flat. You imagine the weight of the wool, now soft and clean, as it is stacked inside the press. Once the fabric is positioned, the worker begins to turn the large wooden handles at the top of the screw. You hear the slow, deep creak of the wood as the pressure increases, a heavy and satisfying sound that speaks of immense power being applied gently. Historians still argue whether these presses were common in every small neighborhood laundry, or if they were a luxury found only in the larger, high-end establishments that catered to the elite of the city. It is a fascinating debate because it touches on the social hierarchy of Roman cleanliness. If you didn't have access to a press, your toga might be clean and white, but it would lack the sharp, professional finish of a man who could afford the best services. You look at the press in front of you and realize that it is the ultimate symbol of status. To have your clothes pressed was to show the world that you had the time and the resources to care about the smallest details. It is the ancient equivalent of a high-end dry cleaner's steam press, turning a simple piece of clothing into a uniform of power. A quirky or fringe tidbit that adds a layer of mystery to this room is the potential use of hedgehog skins. Some ancient sources suggest that before the thistle brushes became universal, or perhaps in specific regions, the dried skins of hedgehogs were used as carding tools. The stiff, natural quills were thought to be perfect for lifting the nap of the wool without tearing the fibers. You imagine a fuller carefully preparing a hedgehog skin, a strange and prickly tool that required a very steady hand. It gives a whole new meaning to the idea of a natural brush. You could say the Romans were experts at finding a use for everything in the natural world, even the most defensive of creatures. It's a bit of a prickly subject, but in the pursuit of the perfect toga, no resource was off limits. As the screw press is tightened, the worker stops and listens to the wood. There is a specific point where the pressure is just right, and he seems to know it by instinct. He leaves the toga there, under the heavy weight of the beams, where it will sit for several hours. This rest under pressure is what sets the folds and smooths the fibers into a permanent, elegant finish. You think about the weight of that press, which could be hundreds of pounds, and you realize it acts much like a modern weighted blanket, but for the clothes instead of the person. There is something very calming about the idea of everything being held firmly in place, of all the chaos of the washing and the drying being squeezed out until only the smooth, flat reality remains. A joke that a Roman might appreciate involves a particularly thin fuller, who accidentally got himself caught in the press and spent the afternoon becoming the city's first human bookmark. It is a silly, exaggerated image, but it captures the sense of power that these machines possessed. You look at the heavy wood and feel a sense of respect for the forces at play. You could say the press is the only employee in the shop that never complains about the heat, though it does have a tendency to squeak like a senator who didn't get his way during a debate. The sound of the wood settling is like a slow, deep sigh, a signal that the day's most intense physical work is drawing to a close. The light in the room is now a deep, burnished bronze, casting long shadows of the presses across the floor. You notice a small table where various aromatic substances are kept in ceramic jars. This is the very final touch. While the toga is still in the press, or just after it comes out, it might be treated with a hint of scent. This wasn't the heavy, floral perfumes of the elite, but rather something more grounding. You see a jar of dried lavender and another of pressed bay leaves. These were sometimes placed between the folds of the fabric during the pressing process, allowing the wool to absorb a faint, clean aroma that would mask any lingering scent of the sulfur or the vats. You imagine the new toga smell being a source of great pride for a Roman man, just as we enjoy the scent of a new car or a fresh book. A citizen would appreciate the subtle, earthy fragrance of a professionally cleaned robe. It was a sign of freshness and hygiene in a city that could often be overwhelming to the senses. You take a slow, deep breath, and you can almost catch that scent in the air, a mix of clean wool, sun-baked earth, and a whisper of herbs. It is a very comforting smell, the kind that makes you want to wrap yourself in the fabric and find a quiet corner for a nap. As you wait for the press to do its work, you watch the other workers in the room. They are moving with a quiet efficiency, clearing away the brushes and the parchment scraps. Their movements are fluid and calm, a contrast to the high, energy stomping of the morning. You realize that the finishing room is a place of transition, where the identity of the worker shifts from a manual laborer to a craftsman. To handle the finished togas requires clean hands and a gentle touch. You see a young apprentice washing his hands in a basin of clear water, scrubbing away the last of the white clay from his fingernails before he is allowed to touch the pressed fabric. It is a ritual of respect for the work they have done. The sound of the city outside is now a muffled, distant hum. The heavy stone walls of the Fullonica act as a barrier, creating a sanctuary of quiet industry. You feel a sense of stillness settling over you, the kind that comes from watching a process reach its natural conclusion. There is no more fire, no more water, and no more chemicals. There is only the steady pressure of the wood and the soft touch of the brush. You find yourself leaning against one of the wooden beams, the surface cool and smooth under your hand. You are witnessing the final polishing of a Roman life. Historians often discuss the perfectionist nature of the Roman middle class, and the finishing room is the best evidence for it. These weren't people who were satisfied with good enough. They wanted their clothes to look as though they had never been dirty, as though they had just come fresh from the weaver's loom. This desire for perfection is what drove the development of the screw press and the specialized carding tools. You see it in the way the head fuller inspects a finished toga that has just been released from the press. He holds it up to the fading light, checking for any stray fibers or uneven folds. He runs a hand over the surface, his face a mask of concentration. When he finally nods, you feel a sense of relief, a shared moment of professional satisfaction. You think about the texture of the wool again, how it has changed from the heavy, sodden mass in the wash tub to this crisp, light, and soft masterpiece. It is a physical transformation that mirrors the cycle of the day. The morning was about the struggle and the dirt. The afternoon was about the cleansing and the sun, and the evening is about the smoothing and the rest. You are following that same cycle, your own mind becoming smoother and more at peace as the story unfolds. The worries of the world are being pressed out of you, leaving only the calm, steady rhythm of the shop. A light joke about the nap of the wool might be that the fabric is the only thing in Rome getting a nap today, while everyone else is working. But as the sun goes down, you realize that the nap of the fabric and the nap of the workers are both approaching. The end of the work is in sight. You could call the raising of the nap the most optimistic part of the job, a way of giving the wool a second chance at life. It's about making things soft again, removing the hardness of the day's labor. You feel that softness in the air, a gentle invitation to let go of your own tension. The worker begins to loosen the screw of the press, the wood making a lighter, higher, pitched creak as the pressure is released. He carefully lifts the heavy beam and begins to remove the layers of boards and parchment. You watch with anticipation. When the toga is finally revealed, it is a thing of beauty. The folds are sharp and straight, like the columns of a temple. The surface of the wool is matte and elegant, catching the low light in a way that suggests depth and quality. It looks solid, dignified, and utterly clean. The worker drapes it over his arm, and it hangs with a grace that only professional pressing can provide. You notice that the worker's movements have slowed down even more. He handles the toga as if it were a sacred object, avoiding any sudden motions that might introduce a new wrinkle. He moves toward a final inspection table, where a small oil lamp has been lit. The golden flame flickers in the draught, casting a warm, dancing light over the white fabric. He checks the edges one last time, his eyes moving slowly across the hem. This is the final touch that gives the section its name, the moment where the work is truly finished. You feel a deep sense of completion, a feeling that everything is exactly where it needs to be. The story of the finishing room is a story of care. It is about the small things that make a big difference. It is about the turn of a screw, the stroke of a thistle, and the placement of a bay leaf. These are the details that define a civilization. Rome wasn't just built on grand ideas and big armies. It was built on the pride of a man who knew how to brush a piece of wool until it felt like silk. You find a profound sense of peace in that thought. The world is made of these small acts of excellence, and by witnessing them, you are participating in the goodness of the world. As the last toga is removed from the press and the tools are put away, the room falls into a deep, respectful silence. The dust motes have settled and the air is cool. You take one last look at the large wooden screw, its threads looking like a spiral staircase to nowhere. It stands as a silent monument to the day's labor. You feel a wave of sleepiness wash over you, a heavy and comfortable feeling that matches the weight of the wool. The journey through the laundry is almost over, and the reward is a sense of order and cleanliness that goes deep into the spirit. You think about the person who will wear this toga tomorrow. They will wake up, perhaps feeling a bit tired or worried about their day. But when they put on this garment, they will feel the softness of the wool against their skin and the crispness of the folds. They will smell the faint scent of the sun and the bay leaves. They will stand a little taller, move with a bit more confidence, and face the world with a sense of dignity. All of that is the result of the work done in this quiet room. You feel a sense of connection to that person, a shared human experience of wanting to be our best selves. The worker blows out the small oil lamp, and the room is plunged into a soft, blue twilight. The shapes of the benches and the presses become silhouettes against the pale windows. You turn to leave, your own movements slow and rhythmic. You carry the peace of the finishing room with you, a smooth and pressed feeling in your own mind. The day's work is done, the transformation is complete, and the city of Rome is ready for the night. You move toward the final section of your journey, the path back to your own rest, feeling the soft, invisible threads of history guiding your way. The story of the screw press and the hedgehog brushes is a reminder that beauty often requires a bit of pressure and a lot of patience. It is a lesson that you can carry into your own dreams. No matter how messy or rough the day has been, there is always a way to smooth things out, to raise the nap, and to find the crispness again. You are safe in the quiet of the Roman night, protected by the strength of the wood and the softness of the wool. Everything is ready. Everything is finished. You close your eyes for a second, the sound of the creaking wood a distant, soothing memory that leads you toward a deep and dreamless sleep. The sky is now a deep, bruised purple, fading into a soft, charcoal gray at the very edges of the horizon. The heat of the day has finally surrendered to a cool, refreshing breeze that travels up from the Tiber, carrying with it the scent of damp reeds and the secret, muddy depths of the river. You find yourself walking back toward the laundry shop, your steps slow and heavy with a pleasant kind of tiredness. The streets are quieter now, the frantic energy of the morning replaced by the domestic murmurs of families settling in for the evening. You hear the soft, rhythmic clinking of ceramic bowls from an open window, and the distant, muffled laughter of neighbors sharing a final cup of watered wine. The city is preparing to close its eyes, and you are part of that gentle, collective slowing down. As you approach the Fullonica, you see that the wide doors are still open, casting a long, rectangular beam of warm yellow light onto the darkening cobblestones. The apprentices are busy stacking the last of the drying racks against the walls, their shadows stretching out like long, thin giants across the street. You reach into the small pouch at your belt and feel the smooth, familiar texture of your wooden token. It is your key to the day's labor, the proof that your heavy, dusty burden has been transformed into something of value. You step inside, and the air is remarkably still. The splashing has stopped. The rhythmic jumping has ended. The shop feels like a temple after a long festival. Quiet, a bit hollow, and filled with a lingering sense of purpose. You walk toward the counter, where the manager is waiting. He looks tired but satisfied, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of a small oil lamp sitting on the wooden planks. Without a word, he takes your token and turns to a shelf where neat stacks of white fabric are arranged. He selects your toga, lifting it with both hands as if it were a delicate offering. As he lays it out on the counter, you are struck by the sheer brilliance of it. In the low light of the evening, the wool seems to hold its own inner glow, a snowy, pristine white that looks almost ethereal. You reach out and touch the fabric. It is cool to the touch, yet it feels surprisingly substantial. The texture is soft, thanks to the thistle brushes, but the folds are crisp and firm, a testament to the hours spent under the heavy wooden press. A mainstream historical fact that hits home in this moment is the actual cost of this service. For a common laborer, having a toga professionally cleaned like this could cost almost half a day's wages. It was a significant investment in one's public image. You realize that you aren't just paying for clean wool. You are paying for the right to stand tall in the forum tomorrow morning. You might think of it as a very expensive ancient car wash, but for your clothes. It's a reminder that even in Rome, looking good was never cheap. You hand over a few bronze coins, and the sound of them hitting the counter is sharp and clear in the silence of the shop. You feel a sense of satisfaction in the exchange, a fair price for a day of incredible human effort and natural chemistry. You tuck the folded toga under your arm, and you are surprised by how heavy it still feels. Even when dry, 6 yards of fine, spun wool has a weight that commands respect. As you step back out into the night, the air feels even cooler against your skin. The moon has risen, a pale silver sliver hanging over the rooftops of the apartment blocks. You begin your walk home, choosing the wider, more familiar streets where the moonlight can reach the ground. You pass a public fountain where the water is a steady, musical splash into a stone basin. You notice that the large ceramic jars on the corners look different in the dark. They are silent and empty, waiting for the morning to begin their work again. A quirky or fringe tidbit that crosses your mind as you walk is that these laundry shops were often used as unofficial post offices or message boards. Because almost everyone had to visit the fuller at some point during the week, it was the perfect place to leave a note or ask about a lost item. You imagine a small piece of parchment tucked behind a jar, containing a message for a friend or a simple advertisement for a local baker. The laundry shop was the social hub of the neighborhood, a place where the news of the city was squeezed and pressed alongside the clothes. You could call it the original social media platform, though the notifications came with a much stronger smell of ammonia. Historians still argue whether the collection of urine was strictly sorted by age, or if it was all mixed together in a giant communal vat. Some suggest that vintage, liquid from certain high traffic areas, was more prized than others, creating a secret hierarchy of cleaning agents that only the master fullers understood. It is a strange thing to ponder while walking through a moonlit city, but it adds to the sense of complexity that hides beneath the surface of Roman life. Nothing is simple. Everything has a system, a reason, and a history. You look at the dark shadows of the buildings and feel the weight of those thousands of small, practical decisions that keep 1,000,000 people living together in one place. As you turn into your own narrow alleyway, you feel the walls closing in like a warm stone blanket. The air here is still and smells of old brick and the faint, sweet scent of a neighbor's evening meal. You climb the stairs of your apartment building, your sandals making a slow, rhythmic thud against the worn stone steps. Each floor you pass is quiet, the heavy wooden doors shut tight against the night. By the time you reach your own door, your breathing has slowed to a deep, steady rhythm. You step inside and place the fresh toga on your small wooden stool. In the dark room, the white fabric stands out like a ghost, a silent reminder of the day's journey. You move to the window and look out over the city. The rooftops of Rome stretch out in every direction, a landscape of terracotta tiles and dark chimneys. Far off in the distance, you can see the faint glow of the watchmen's fires near the city gates. The sounds of the night are a soft, low hum, the distant barking of a dog, the rustle of the wind in the trees, and the occasional creak of a cart. You feel a deep sense of peace. The work is done. The city is clean. The cycle of the day has reached its natural conclusion. You think about the Fullers, now likely asleep in their own small rooms, their tired feet finally resting after a day of dancing in the tubs. You feel a sense of gratitude for their strength and their patience. The second-century Romans had a joke about a man who was so obsessed with his clean toga that he refused to sit down for 3 days, fearing a single wrinkle. It is a silly thought, but as you look at your own pristine garment, you understand the feeling. There is a certain dignity in a fresh start. Tomorrow, you will wrap yourself in that white wool and walk out into the sunlight of the Forum. But for now, the only thing you need to do is rest. You feel the weight of your own limbs, heavy and relaxed. The tension of the day has been pressed out of you, just like the wrinkles in the fabric. You are part of the quiet, sleeping heart of the empire. You think about the pecunia non olit philosophy one last time. It is a reminder that the world is a practical place, and that there is beauty to be found in the most humble of tasks. The laundry industry is a perfect example of that, taking the unwanted and the ignored and turning it into something that represents the highest ideals of civilization. It is a lesson in resilience and creativity. You feel a deep connection to the earth beneath your feet and the stars above your head. Everything is connected in a great, cosmic circle of cleaning and renewal. You take one last, deep breath of the cool night air and turn away from the window. The room is dark and quiet, the only sound the soft, rhythmic beating of your own heart. You lie down on your bed, the wooden frame feeling solid and supportive. You think about the texture of the wool toga waiting for you in the morning. It will be warm, heavy, and clean. It will be the uniform of your life. But for now, you let go of the toga, the vats, the clay, and the sun. You let the history of the laundry fade into a soft, hazy memory. The city of Rome is asleep, and you are drifting along with it, carried by the slow, steady tide of the night. The images of the day begin to blur and soften. You see the golden liquid in the morning sun, the gray suds in the wash tub, the white dust of the clay, and the long, straight folds of the press. They are like scenes from a dream, moving past you in a slow, hypnotic parade. The sounds of the shop become a distant, soothing echo, a lullaby of splashing water and creaking wood. You feel yourself sinking deeper into the soft, velvet darkness. There is no rush, no deadlines, and no noise, just the quiet, steady peace of a job well done and a world at rest. You are safe, you are clean, and you are home. As the final light of the moon shifts across the floor, you feel a sense of profound stillness. The world has stopped its busy turning for a while. The laundrymen are dreaming of white wool and clear water. The tax collectors are dreaming of silver coins. And you are dreaming of the long, sun-drenched history of a city that knows how to find the light in the dark. You are part of the story, a small but vital thread in the great tapestry of Rome. And as you finally close your eyes, you feel the soft, invisible weight of the centuries settling over you, a heavy and comforting toga that protects you from the world. The journey is complete. The morning will bring new dust and new challenges, but that is a story for another time. Tonight is for the stillness. Tonight is for the rest. You are floating on a sea of quiet history, the waves gentle and slow. You feel a deep, sleepy satisfaction, the kind that comes from understanding the world and your place in it. The Roman night is a kind and gentle mistress, holding you in her arms and whispering stories of the past. You listen to her voice, a soft and steady hum that guides you into the deepest part of your dreams. Everything is exactly as it should be. The air in the room is cool and still, the scent of the bay leaves and the sun, baked wool lingering in the shadows. You feel the softness of the air against your skin, a gentle touch that encourages you to let go. You are perfectly still, perfectly quiet, and perfectly at ease. The history of the Roman laundry is a story of transformation, and you have been transformed along with it. You have moved from the noise of the street to the quiet of the room, from the dirt of the day to the cleanliness of the night. You are ready for the final, peaceful rest of the journey. The shadows of the furniture look like ancient monuments in the low light, silent witnesses to your rest. You feel a sense of belonging in this space, a feeling that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. The world outside is a distant memory, a place of light and sound that has no power over you now. You are in the heart of the peace, the center of the stillness. The rhythm of your breathing is the only clock in the room, a slow and steady measure of the night. You are part of the eternal cycle, the rise and fall of the sun and the moon, the washing and the drying of the world. You think about the scent of the sun one last time, and you feel its warmth in your imagination. It is a light that never goes out, a heat that never fades. It is the energy that builds empires and cleans togas. And it is the energy that brings you to this moment of perfect, sleepy peace. You feel a surge of gratitude for the world and all its messy, wonderful, and practical details. You are a part of it all, and it is a part of you. The history of Rome is your history, a story of human beings doing their best to be bright and clean in a dusty world. The night deepens, and the silence grows even more profound. You are at the edge of sleep, the threshold of the dream world. You step forward with a light heart and a quiet mind. The journey of the Roman laundry is over, and the reward is this moment of absolute tranquility. You are safe in the arms of history, protected by the strength of the stones and the softness of the wool. The world is at peace, and so are you. You drift off. The image of the brilliant white toga, the last thing you see, a glowing beacon of order and beauty in the velvet night. The world outside has completely faded now, leaving only the soft, steady rhythm of your breathing. You feel your muscles lengthening, your hands resting gently at your sides, and your mind becoming as clear and still as the water in a Roman fountain at midnight. The heavy wool of the story has been folded and put away, leaving you light and unburdened. You are safe in this quiet space, tucked into the soft shadows of time, where no worries can reach you. The sounds of the ancient city, the distant carts, the splashing vats, and the creaking presses have all turned into a single, low whisper that tells you it is time to rest. The warmth of the day is a lingering memory in your bones, a gentle heat that helps you sink deeper into your bed. You are surrounded by a sense of order and cleanliness, a feeling that everything in your world has been made right. Like a fresh toga waiting for the morning, you are prepared and at peace. The air around you is cool and fresh, carrying the scent of the silent river and the sleeping earth. You don't have to think about the morning or the work ahead. You only have to exist in this perfect, quiet moment of transition. Let your thoughts drift like the fine white clay in the morning sun, shimmering for a second before settling into a soft, quiet layer of sleep. You are part of a long, unbroken tradition of rest, a rhythm that has guided humanity for thousands of years. The stars over Rome are the same stars that watch over you now, a constant and comforting presence in the sky. Close your eyes and let the history of the world carry you away on a gentle, dark tide. The story is finished, the work is done, and the night is yours. Sweet dreams, and let the peace of the ancient city guide you into a deep and restorative slumber.